They stood in a crooked line, barely tall enough to see over the wooden gate. 5 boys, shirts hanging off them, dust to their knees. The moon behind them made their eyes look silver. The outlaw didn't move. He just stood inside the shadow of the cabin, one hand on the doorframe, one on the old rifle hanging near the coat hook. He didn't reach for it. Not yet. The youngest one stepped forward, no older than 8. His lip bled where someone had hit him. "He's gonna kill us." The outlaw didn't ask who, didn't ask why. He looked at the boy, then the others, then the latch. He unhooked it slowly. The gate creaked like it was trying to warn him. The boys stepped in like they didn't trust the ground. One looked back, the oldest, big for his age, 12, maybe 13. His hand went to the back of his waistband. "No guns inside," the outlaw said. The boy didn't answer, but his fingers twitched, didn't draw, just walked. The other 4 followed, silent, shoulders up, barefoot, one of them. The outlaw stepped aside. I watched them pass, closed the gate again. Inside, the kitchen smelled like ash, and something burned long ago. The boys stood in a corner, backs half to each other. No one sat. "You runnin' from home?" Silence. "You runnin' from a man." The second youngest, tall and pale, swallowed hard. The oldest finally spoke. "We're not runnin'." "You walked here?" He didn't blink. "We came because someone said you don't ask questions." "I don't." "Then don't." The outlaw looked at the stove. The fire wasn't lit. He reached down, shoved a match under the wood. Flame caught. Shadows twitched. "You eat?" he asked. No answer. He pulled out the stale bread, cracked it in half, then again passed it to them like communion. "No thanks." They tore into it. Fast. No chewing. The outlaw poured coffee, slid it down the table toward the oldest. He didn't take it. "Name." The boy looked him in the eye. "You don't ask." "I ask when it's my table." Still silent. The outlaw sipped his own coffee. "Fine." The third boy, short, with dirt under every nail, leaned in toward the younger one. "We shouldn't have come here," he whispered. "Too late," said another. "You don't get it. He's gonna come. He doesn't know where we are. He always knows." The outlaw spoke over them. "How long since you slept?" "Couple days," one muttered. "Why not?" The pale boy flinched. "He comes at night." "Who's he?" None of them answered. The outlaw stood, moved to the sink. "Run water from the pump." It came out red for a second. Rust. He didn't flinch. Just let it run clear. Fill the kettle, put it on the stove. "You got any wounds?" The youngest shrugged. "Not bad." "Show me." "No." The outlaw didn't press. He dried his hands on a rag, tossed it onto the table. The fabric caught on a knot in the wood. The door rattled. The boys froze. Just wind, just wood settling, but the look in their eyes said they didn't believe it. The outlaw didn't either. He walked to the window, peeked out. Empty field, same as before. No torches, no hoofbeats, just night. "You gonna keep us?" "Did I say I wasn't?" "You're gonna kick us out tomorrow." "No." "Why not?" "Because you already crossed the gate. That makes it my problem now." The youngest sat down on the floor, legs crossed like school. He stared at the flames. "You got a gun?" he asked. "I got 5. "You got bullets." "More than you do." The older one pulled a pistol from his waistband. It looked too big for his hand. "I got 6. The outlaw raised his eyebrows. "Good for you. Don't touch it again." "You gonna stop me?" The outlaw stepped forward, didn't blink, didn't raise his voice. "You draw in my cabin. You better use it. And if you use it, you better not miss it." The silence after that held tight. The boy looked down, put the pistol on the floor. "No one's going to shoot anybody," said the youngest. "Not tonight." "You said he was going to kill you," the outlaw said. "He is." "Then you best let me help you." "We don't need help." "Then why are you here?" No one answered. The fire snapped behind them. The outlaw looked over the boys. Their bodies held wrong, too tense for their age, like they didn't know how to breathe deep. "You sleep here tonight. I'll figure out the rest in the morning." One of them stood. "We'll take the floor." "I got a loft." "We don't sleep above ground." The outlaw nodded, didn't push. He threw down blankets, old but clean, pointed to a shelf with extra water, a cracked jar of peanut butter, and a rusty tin he kept tea in. None of them moved. "Have you ever been here before?" he asked. The oldest shook his head. We heard about it. Word gets around. What kind of word? The kind that says you ain't afraid of the law. The outlaw didn't smile. I'm not. He lit the lantern hanging by the window, brought it closer. The boys squinted. The glow fell across the third boy's neck, a scar, jagged, red, fresh enough it hadn't healed. The outlaw leaned down slowly. Who did that? The boy didn't answer. The outlaw reached for the lantern wick. Turn it higher. The scar ran almost ear to collar, like someone tried to silence him. None of the other boys spoke. The outlaw stepped back, set the lantern on the table. The flame danced taller now. He looked at the 5 of them, tired, feral, torn up inside, and something deeper than that. Something worse. You're safe here tonight, he said. No one said thank you, but they didn't leave. The kettle hissed. The outlaw poured black coffee into dented tin mugs and set them on the table one by one. The boys didn't say thanks, just wrapped their hands around the heat like it might run from them. They hadn't slept. Not really. One dozed with his eyes half open. Another flinched at every wind shift. They sat now at the table, shoulders hunched, skin pale, dirt thick in the cracks of their knuckles. Names? The outlaw asked. No one answered. He let it sit, waited. Ain't giving you nothing, the third boy snapped. His voice is too sharp for his size. Maybe 10 years old, but already knew how to bite with his words. Didn't ask for everything, just a name. We don't use names, said the pale boy. Is that supposed to keep you safe? It's kept us alive. The outlaw sipped his coffee. It was bitter and burned going down. You think not saying who you are makes you someone else? Sometimes, the oldest said. You all brothers? No. Friends? We just ended up together. That's how it works now. Lost boys find each other. The youngest picked at the crust of the bread. He doesn't like when we talk too much. Who's he? The youngest didn't answer. You said he was gonna kill you. He will. Then maybe tell me who he is. Don't say his name. Why? 'Cause he might hear it. The outlaw stood, took the kettle off the stove, refilled the mugs. The pale boy shifted in his chair. We should leave. No, said the oldest. He's gonna come. He always comes. Let him. The third boy cut in. We don't stay in one place more than 2 nights. You're staying here, the outlaw said. Why? The oldest asked. Because you came. That doesn't mean we trust you. You don't have to trust me. You just have to sit still long enough to stop running. The oldest leaned forward. Have you ever run from someone? The outlaw didn't blink. Once. Did he find you? He did. Then you know. Yeah, the outlaw said. I know. The room stayed quiet a long time after that. The outlaw moved to the window, looked out. Just trees. No horses, no torches. Still safe. You got enemies? The pale boy asked. A few. Any sheriffs? The outlaw turned. You know a sheriff? Silence. I used to, he said. He killed my brother. The oldest boy's jaw clenched. Will you ever get him back? I'm still breathing. He ain't. The youngest stirred. You shoot him? No. Poison? No. Then how? I made him think he'd lost. Every day. I made him walk through that loss until it broke him. The boys looked at each other. The third one whispered, That's worse than dying. Sometimes it is. The outlaw poured himself more coffee. Sit down slowly. Have you ever seen someone hang? He asked. They nodded. Who? Don't say his. Name. The youngest said again, this time sharper. The outlaw didn't push. They ate like they hadn't in days. Fingers tight around crusts, biting fast, chewing loud, like the food might disappear if they paused. You want to stay here, you follow rules. The outlaw said. What kind? No guns drawn. No running. No lying. The oldest raised an eyebrow. You ain't lied in your life? I did once. It cost me everything. The pale boy asked, Why are you out here alone? Because people hurt more than they help. Then why'd you let us in? The outlaw didn't answer. The youngest stood, wandered toward the hearth. He picked up an old tin soldier from the mantel, ran his thumb over its chipped helmet. You got a kid? He asked. Used to. What happened? She died. How? Cold took her. The room went quiet again. I'm sorry, the youngest said. Me too. The outlaw stood, moved toward the back corner, opened a drawer, pulled out an old can of beans, slid it onto the table. "You ain't gonna turn us in?" the third boy asked. "No, not even if there's money." "There was money once, but money doesn't matter when the debt's blood." The oldest boy sat back. I looked at the others. "We ain't going nowhere," the pale boy hissed. "He's gonna find us. He always finds us." "Not here." "How do you know?" The outlaw answered for him. "Because I know how men like him think." "You don't know him." "I don't have to. You carry him with you." "I see it." The oldest reached into his shirt, pulled out a chain. At the end, a broken locket, half rusted. The hinge snapped. Inside, a scrap of fabric, red, torn. He set it on the table. The outlaw stared at it. "Have you ever opened it?" he asked. "Don't have the other piece." "Who did?" "Ma." "Is she still alive?" "No." The outlaw reached out but didn't touch it, just looked. "You know what it means?" the boy asked. "I know what it feels like, to hold on to something that doesn't talk back." The fire cracked. The wind moved against the window. The room stayed still. The outlaw leaned back in his chair, eyes locked on the locket, scar on one boy's neck, blood on another's lip, ghosts in all of them. He didn't ask again for names, and they didn't offer. The cabin was still, no wind, no breath, the kind of quiet that only comes when children sleep and someone older stays awake because he can't. The outlaw sat in the rocker by the stove, boots off, rifle within reach. The fire had burned low. Shadows crawled across the plank floor like they had something to say. 4 of the boys lay curled up near the hearth, wrapped in blankets. The 5th, the oldest, slept by the door, head propped on his rolled-up coat like he meant to run if something creaked wrong. The outlaw stood. He moved slowly, steps soft, silent. He didn't know why he was checking their things. Maybe he did. Maybe part of him already knew. First, the small canvas bag near the youngest. It held nothing but socks, a dented harmonica, and half a peppermint stick wrapped in wax paper. He put it back gently. The second bundle was stuffed in a torn pillowcase, a comb with missing teeth, old candy wrappers, a photo ripped down the middle, one side a woman, the other half gone. Third was the coat by the door. He picked it up, careful not to wake the boy. Something in the inner pocket clinked against itself. He slid it out. Clothes, gray, stiff with dirt. He unwrapped it. The badge caught the light like it remembered what it used to be. Tired metal, edges scratched, but the crest was still clear. Too clear. 3 branches, 1 star, and the family name etched underneath, faded but legible. Same shape, same silver, same lie. He saw the rope again before he meant to. His brother. Boots off the ground, wind whipping the dust. The sheriff holding the badge like a goddamn lantern. Eyes cold, face still. "You should have stayed gone," the sheriff had said. The outlaw blinked, came back. His hand shook. He dropped the badge. It clinked loud on the floor. The oldest boy stirred, eyes cracked open, then fully awake. He didn't sit up, just stared. "You saw it?" he asked. The outlaw didn't answer. The boy didn't blink. "It's not what you think." "It's exactly what I think. That badge ain't his anymore." "Then why did you get it?" The boy pushed himself up, slow. I looked at the others still sleeping. His voice dropped low. "Because I took it." The outlaw stepped forward. "From who?" The boy didn't speak. "You know what that crest means?" "Yeah." "Then why carry it?" "Because he gave it to me. Then he tried to kill me." "That badge," the outlaw said, "was pinned to my brother's chest the day they hanged him." "I know." "You know." I watched. The air pulled tight. The fire popped. Still, no one else moved. "You watched my brother die?" the outlaw asked. "I watched a lot of people die." "Why?" "Because I couldn't stop it." The outlaw picked up the badge again, turned it in his hand. "Why'd he give it to you?" "Punishment." "For what?" "For not lying well enough." "You mean the sheriff's your—" The boy nodded, just once. "He's my father." The outlaw stared, his hand clenched around the metal. "Whose sons are you?" he asked. The boy didn't speak. "All of you?" The boy nodded again. "Why run now?" "He was going to kill us." "Why now?" "He found out we talked." The outlaw looked at the badge again. "Talk about what?" The boy said nothing. "Talk to who?" Silence. You think I'm going to protect you after that? I don't know what you're going to do. You knew who I was before you got here? Only after we saw your eyes. What about him? They look like him, but worse. The outlaw didn't speak. The badge felt heavy now. I hate him, the boy said. That doesn't make us kin. I didn't ask for that. You didn't have to. You brought his name here. No one said his name. Don't have to. This badge, this house, what's left of me remembers. The boy looked down. You gonna tell the others? He asked. You think they don't know? They don't know how close it got. Have you ever held the rope? No. Ever kicked the stool? No. Then you still got breath. The outlaw dropped the badge in the cold ashes of the hearth. Sleep, he said. I can't. You better try. The boy laid back down. The outlaw didn't. He sat by the fire again, watching it fade, watching the badge sink into the gray like it belonged there. The sun hadn't risen yet. Pale gray light seeped through the cracks in the boards. The outlaw hadn't moved from the chair. Micah sat on the floor, arms around his knees, back pressed against the far wall. The others were still asleep, scattered across the room like fallen shadows. The outlaw broke the silence. You're running from the sheriff. Micah didn't answer at first. He stared at the dying coals. He ain't a sheriff in that house, he said. He's a goddamn devil. The outlaw leaned forward. His voice was low, even. You watched him kill my brother. I didn't know who he was. I was little, 7 maybe. You watched. Everybody watched. They made us. He makes you watch? Micah nodded. He told you why. Said it was justice. Said that man stole something. He didn't. I believe you. You didn't stop it. I couldn't. You ran after. Number we stayed. Me. The others. Mama the outlaw's face was stone. You stayed in that house. For years. What happened to your mother? Micah's jaw clenched. He locked her under the stairs. Said she talked too much. For how long? First time? 2 days. Second time? A week. After that, we stopped counting. Sometimes he left her there overnight, sometimes longer. The outlaw didn't blink. And you let it happen? We tried to get her out. He beat Micah for it. Tied him up. Made us watch that too. Came a voice from behind them. One of the boys had woken. His voice was flat. No emotion. Micah didn't turn. He broke my ribs. The outlaw stood, walked to the mantel, picked up the lantern, lit it. The wick flared to life, casting a glow across the room. Why didn't you run sooner? He asked. Micah finally looked up. Because she told us not to. Said we weren't ready. Said we had to wait till the right moment. What? Changed. He killed a dog. Ours. The youngest boy cried too loud. He said crying's for the weak. Shot the dog right in front of him. The outlaw's mouth tightened. That was the moment? That was the moment. And your mother? She told us to go. Said she'd find us later. Where is she now? We don't know. Dead. I hope not. The outlaw turned back toward the table. The badge still sat in the hearth ash. Dull now, like it had lost the last of its shine. Does he ever wear it in the house? Every day. He wears it when he hits you? Yes. When did he lock your mother away? Micah's voice broke. Yes. The outlaw knelt down, picked up the badge. He made this a weapon, he said. Micah nodded. You still carry it? I don't know why. You want to kill him? Micah didn't answer. The outlaw pressed again. You want to kill your father? He ain't a father. Then who is he? A ghost we're still bleeding from. The outlaw stared at him. You hate him? Micah nodded. With everything. Good. Another boy sat up now, the youngest, rubbing his eyes. He looked at the outlaw, then at Micah. Did you tell him? He asked. Yeah. Micah said, everything? Enough. The youngest looked scared, then brave. He used to make Micah stand in the cold with no shirt, just to see how long he'd last. I lasted an hour, Micah said quietly. He laughed when Micah passed out. The boy added. The outlaw stood. He looked around the room. Each boy is slowly waking now. Eyes on him, eyes that had seen too much. You think running will fix it? No, Micah said. You think talking about it makes it go away? No. Then why tell me? Because you lost someone too. We saw it in your face. The outlaw set the badge on the table, sat back in the chair. I didn't lose my brother, he said. He was taken. And the man that took him stood there with this same badge. Said it was justice. Micah leaned forward. You get revenge. No. Why not? Because revenge doesn't change nothing. You still hear the rope in your dreams. Then what do? You survive. You learn how to walk through the fire without catching, and when the moment's right, you don't run. Micah stood now. He walked toward the table. I looked down at the badge. I don't want it, he said. You keep it, the outlaw replied. Why? For when it's time. Micah looked at him. How will I know when? You'll feel it, like a tremor under your feet. The outlaw pushed the badge toward him. Micah didn't pick it up, but he didn't walk away either. The room stayed quiet. The wind outside shifted. No one moved. Not yet. Dawn split the trees with a quiet too thin to carry weight. The outlaw rode alone, one hand on the reins, the other resting over the rifle across his lap. The boys were still asleep when he left. He didn't wake them, didn't say why he was going. He just saddled the horse and went. The trail was narrow, barely there anymore, eaten by brush and years. He knew it by memory, not sight. The cold bit harder the higher he climbed, up past the switchback ledge, past the stone that used to mark a fence line now long gone. The old oak still stood at the top, blackened from a lightning strike 15 years back. The grave sat beneath it, just a crooked headstone made of wood. No name, just a carved cross someone else must have etched after. The rope was still buried where he left it, one end knotted tight in the dirt, the other frayed like it remembered the weight it carried. He stepped off the horse and knelt down. He didn't say anything at first. I didn't need to. The wind blew steadily. Leaves scratched against bark. Insects are silent. The kind of quiet that didn't ask for prayer. He reached into his coat and pulled out the folded satchel he'd taken from Micah's pile before leaving. Not stolen, just taken. Something about it had felt off. He'd felt weight in the lining, too small to be food, too flat to be tools. He pulled open the flap. Clothes, a carved wooden horse, a book with no title, and a letter. Folded 4 times, paper yellowed from sweat and age. No seal, no envelope, just creased, like it had been opened and read too many times to stay whole. He opened it slowly. Inside, just one line, written in the same jagged scrawl he remembered from the ledger the sheriff used to carry. He lied to all of us. M. He stared at it. Long. Not Micah's handwriting. Different M. A woman's hand, maybe. Maybe their mother. Maybe not. He read it again. He lied to all of us. He knew who the he was. The outlaw folded the letter once, then again. His eyes flicked toward the rope. Still there. Part buried in red clay, part sun-bleached and curling like a snake's skin. The knot that held his brother was still visible. He hadn't undone it. Couldn't. It stayed, like a scar in the dirt. He sat back on his heels. His brother had been older, wiser, had a voice that soothed angry men, and fists that never swung unless they had to. The sheriff had called him a thief, said he took a horse, said it belonged to the county. That was a lie. The outlaw remembered standing in the square. I remembered the crowd. I remembered how no one looked him in the eye. I remembered the badge, the same badge Micah had in his coat. He closed his eyes. His brother's boots had twitched in the air. Not for long. Just enough. The outlaw hadn't screamed. He'd just watched. I learned something in that moment that never left, that men don't need truth. They need permission. And the badge had given it. He stood up, pulled the letter from his coat again. He took a match from the box in his pocket, lit it. The wind fought it. He cupped the flame, held it against the edge of the paper. It caught on fast. The ink curled. The words went first. The M burned last. He dropped it to the dirt. The flame climbed fast. The letter twisted into ash. He didn't look away. The sun crested over the ridge, pale, soft, almost kind. He looked once more at the grave, at the rope, at the place his brother stopped breathing and the world didn't blink. He turned, got back on the horse. Fog rolled down the valley as he rode. By the time he reached the bend, the headstone was gone from sight. He didn't look back. Dawn broke like it didn't want to be noticed. Just a thin line of light bleeding across the tree line, soft and colorless. The outlaw saddled the horse without a sound. He didn't wake the boys. He didn't leave a note. He just rode. One rifle, one coat, no plan. The trail he took wasn't on any map. It curved through trees half dead, over creek beds long dry, through stretches of land too forgotten to be called anything. The hooves hit the dirt like a drum no one else could hear. He didn't touch the reins much. The horse knew the way. It always did. He hadn't been back in a while. When he saw the oak, his jaw tightened. It stood twisted near the ridge, branches split from old lightning and age, one side black, the other barely clinging to bark. The ground beneath it was still bare, like the grass refused to grow where the hanging happened. He slid off the saddle, let the reins drop. The horse didn't move. He stepped to the crooked headstone, still standing, still leaning to the left, still no name, just a sun-carved cross and the mark he made years back with the tip of a hunting knife. He crouched near it, ran his hand across the wood, splintered now, weathered, almost gone. He brushed away the leaves, the moss, the memory. Then he saw it, just under the roots, a length of rope half buried, frayed, gray. The knot is still tight. That same knot, the one he tied himself after it was over. Not to hold anything, just to mark what couldn't be undone. He didn't speak. The silence around him stretched. No wind, no birds, no insects. The kind of silence that wraps your lungs tight and says, don't even breathe. He opened the satchel he'd taken from Micah's things before riding out. Stolen wasn't the right word. Borrowed without asking. It had weight to it. Something tucked under the shirts, beneath the dried apple slices and spare socks. He dug until he found it. A folded square of paper, old, thick, stained at the corners. He unfolded it. 4 creases. No seal, no name. Just a single line. He lied to all of us. M. He stared at it. Once. Then again. The handwriting wasn't Micah's. This was older. A woman's maybe. Slanted and small. Sharp at the edges. He read it a third time. He lied to all of us. His brother had said something like that. Years back. Not out loud. Not with words. With the way he looked at the sheriff before the rope took him. With the way his hands stayed steady, even as they tied him up. He didn't beg. He didn't shout. He just stared at the man with the badge and the law and the lie. The outlaw swallowed hard. He folded the letter again. Tight, like it needed to be smaller than it was. He held it in his palm and looked at the grave. His boots dug into the same dirt they buried his brother in. The sheriff called it justice. The papers called it theft, as the people called it nothing at all. No one questioned it. No one looked back. Except him. He'd spent years replaying that moment, watching the body drop, listening to the creak of the rope, the way the sky didn't change, the way the wind never came. The badge had shown that day, pinned to the sheriff's chest like a medal, like the truth, but it wasn't. Now it sat in a tin box back at the cabin, in Micah's coat pocket before that, carried like a curse. He looked down at the letter again. He lied to all of us. The sheriff lied to the town, lied to the court, lied to the boys, lied to their mother, lied to the man he killed, lied so often that even the truth stopped fighting. The outlaw reached into his coat pocket, pulled out a match, struck it with a flick of his thumb. The flame danced, blue, then orange. He held it steady against the paper. It caught slow, then fast. Black lines raced over white. The words curled into ash. The enum twisted last, like it didn't want to go. He let the fire eat it whole. The wind picked up just enough to scatter the flakes across the grave. He knelt, touched the rope again. It was stiff, brittle, not from blood, from time to time. It had been there too long. He thought about cutting it, digging it out, burying it deeper. But he didn't. Some things needed to stay exactly where they were. He stood, looked once more at the crooked wood, the blackened tree, the roots reaching like fingers trying to hold on to something they'd lost. Then he turned. The horse hadn't moved. He climbed into the saddle, adjusted his coat, and gave a slight nudge. The trail behind him vanished quickly in the mist. Fog rolled in thick through the valley. It didn't rush, just crept in slowly, covered everything in a soft, blind gray, the kind that makes the world look like a memory. Faded, quiet, untouchable. By the time he reached the bend, the oak was gone from view. He didn't look back. "Show me," the outlaw said. Micah nodded once, then turned toward the horses. The other boys followed without a word. No questions, no second thoughts. The air had shifted the moment the outlaw rode back into camp, face unreadable, saddle dusty with grave dirt. Whatever softness had once flickered in him was gone now. They rode east. The wind scraped low across the scrub. dry, mean. Not a word passed between them. The boys rode like they knew the road too well. Like their backs remembered every turn before their eyes could. The outlaw stayed behind them, silent, watching the way they stiffened every time they looked toward the tree line. No one said what they expected to find. The house came into view just past the ridge, slumped in on itself. One side caved from storm rot. The paint is stripped by years of sun and fists. The front steps gone, the screen door hanging sideways from one rusted hinge. It wasn't a house, not anymore, just a place where grief used to sleep. The youngest boy stopped short, his shoulders buckled, his hand rose to his face fast like he could wipe away whatever was climbing up from his throat. "I don't want to go in," he said. "You don't have to," Micah answered. "He'll hear us," another whispered. "He's not here," the outlaw said. "You don't know that." "I know he will be. That's enough." They dismounted. The outlaw tied the horses to a fallen post that might have once been a fence. No one moved toward the house. Micah pointed behind it. "There," he said. The outlaw followed. The backyard was just dirt and splinters. A half-dead tree leaned over like it was trying to leave. And there it was, off-center in the yard, choked in weeds, lined with crumbling stones and old rope tangled at the side. The well. The boys hung back. The outlaw stepped forward slow. His boots kicked a tin cup, rusted through. He bent down, looked over the edge. Black. He took the lantern from his saddlebag, lit the wick. The flame caught fast. He held it over the mouth of the well. "Don't drop it," one boy muttered. The outlaw lowered it by the wire. Slow. The light sank into the dark. The rope twitched, creaked against the pulley. He saw it first in pieces, a torn bit of cloth, red, or what used to be. Then a shape that might have been a leg, stiff with time. A boot, small, bent sideways. Then bone. A skull no bigger than a grapefruit. Empty sockets staring up like they'd been waiting. He held the lantern still. The flame shook. "What is it?" Micah asked. "Clothes. A boot. A child." The wind blew through the yard. "I told you," the youngest whispered. "We heard her," another said. "She screamed sometimes," the third added. "We'd cover our ears, but we still heard it." "Why didn't you tell anyone?" the outlaw asked. "No one listens," Micah said. The outlaw pulled the lantern back up. His hands didn't shake. The flame climbed slowly through the dark, casting shadows on the stone walls. The image of the skull burned behind his eyes even after the light rose past it. He set the lantern on the edge of the well. "You knew something was down there." "We knew," Micah said. "You left her here?" "We didn't know she was dead." "Then why didn't you dig?" "We were scared." "Of what?" Micah didn't answer. The outlaw stepped back from the well. He looked. Around the yard. The door is still off its hinge. The upstairs window shattered, curtain flapping like a warning. A place where bad things happened, and no one stopped them. "How old was she?" he asked. 3, the youngest boy said. "She was your sister?" "She was something." "She talked." "She sang." "When?" "At night, before he got mad." The outlaw turned. I looked at Micah. "Who was she?" He hesitated. "Her name was May," he said. "She was the neighbor's daughter." "What happened?" "She came to play. One day she didn't go back." And he said nothing. He said she ran off. "And you believed him?" Micah's jaw clenched. "We were kids." "You're still kids." The outlaw moved to the base of the well, picked up the rope, frayed, nodded. He ran it through his hands. "You want to carry this?" "No," Micah said. "Too late," the outlaw replied. "It's already yours." "What are you going to do?" The outlaw didn't answer. He wrapped the rope tighter around his fist. "You think he buried her?" the pale boy asked. "No," the outlaw said. "Men like him don't bury. They discard." Micah stepped forward. His voice was low. "He said she was never real, that we made her up." "You didn't." "She gave me a flower once, pressed it in my hand." "Where is it now?" "I lost it." The outlaw looked back into the well. The skull hadn't moved. The cloth still drifted like water, even in dry air. "This ends here," he said. The boys didn't speak. The outlaw walked to the horses, tied the rope to the saddle horn, tight, clean knot. He tossed the other end into the well. The wire groaned. The stone walls held. He turned to Micah. "You're coming down with me." Micah didn't hesitate. The lantern burned steadily as they descended into the dark. The cabin breathed smoke and sweat. The fire crackled low, but no one leaned in. The boys sat scattered, one by the window, two huddled near the hearth, one pacing like the floorboards might split. The youngest had his knees to his chest, chin tucked, eyes locked on the outlaw. The outlaw sat at the table, a long blade in one hand, whetstone in the other. Slow, steady strokes. The scrape of steel filled the room like a warning. Micah spoke first. "You're scaring them." "Good," the outlaw said. "You think this ends with you cutting him down?" "I think it ends with you stop running." The third boy turned, voice sharp. "You don't know him. He doesn't let things go." "I do know him. He'll kill you." The outlaw didn't flinch. He already tried. Failed. The youngest looked up. "You should leave. You should go before he gets here." "I ain't leaving." "But he's coming." "Let him." Micah's hand curled into a fist. "He won't talk first. He'll shoot." "Then he best not miss." The pacing boy stopped. "Why are you even helping us?" The outlaw set the knife down. "Because someone should have helped me." Silence wrapped around the room, the kind that cuts more than comforts. "You think we're worth that?" Micah asked. "I think you're worth more than what he made you believe." The youngest wiped his nose on his sleeve. "Mama said never to trust anyone." "Is she wrong?" the outlaw asked. "She's gone." "I know." The outlaw picked the knife back up, ran it across the stone again. "You're not just hiding us," Micah said. "No." "Then what?" "I'm raising you right." "We already got raised." "Number you got damaged." "There's a difference." The pacing boy walked to the door, pressed his ear against the wood. "I keep thinking I hear hooves." "You will," the outlaw said. "Your mind's still carrying his weight." "He's close." "He's always close," the youngest whispered. Micah moved toward the table. "What if we want to leave?" "You can. Now." "The door's right there." Micah stared. "And you won't stop us?" "Number, but if you walk out now, you still carrying him." "We already carry him." "Then let's bury him right." The boys didn't move. The outlaw stood, stretched his back, and walked to the stove. I opened it. Flames brightened. He shoved a new log inside. "Has he ever hit your mama in front of you?" he asked. No one answered. "Does he ever make you pick who got whipped?" The pacing boy sat down, fast, shoulders shaking. "Did he ever tell you it was your fault?" Micah's voice came slow. "Every time." The outlaw nodded. "Then he's already dead. You're just waiting to bury him." The youngest walked to the table, reached for the knife. The outlaw pulled it back, gentle. "Not that way." "Then how?" "With memory. With truth. With no fear left in your mouth." "You think that's enough?" "It has to be." Micah whispered. "What if he finds us first?" "Then we end it here." The boys looked at each other. "You don't have to stay." The outlaw said again. "But if you do, we fight like we belong here." The fire cracked. Wind scraped at the walls. "I don't want to run anymore," the youngest said. Micah nodded. "Me neither." The pacing boy looked toward the window. "I still hear it, like thunder far off." The outlaw walked to the window, looked out. Nothing but dark and cold trees. Nothing yet. "You'll hear that sound for years," he said, "but it gets quieter." The boys gathered near the table, not close, but closer than they'd been, still watching the door, still bracing for what always came next. Micah stepped forward. "If he kills you, what do we do?" "You don't run." "You don't leave us alone?" "I won't die." Easily, the outlaw reached for the rifle, checked the chamber full. "I knew he'd come," Micah said. "I want him to." The outlaw replied. "You sure? He's the last thing standing between you and peace." Then a knock, hard, sharp. Not the wind. The outlaw turned slow. The boys froze. The youngest backed toward the hearth. Micah reached behind his back. "Don't," the outlaw said. "Not yet." Another knock. He moved to the door. Hand on rifle, breath steady, eyes cold. The boys waited, not breathing, not blinking. The outlaw stood still. Then he reached for the latch. The latch lifted. The outlaw opened the door slow, rifle low, breath tight. But it wasn't the sheriff. It was her. She stumbled forward, barefoot, blood on her dress, dirt in her hair. Her hands trembled as she reached for the frame. Then her knees gave out. The outlaw caught her. She collapsed into his arms like someone who hadn't been touched in years. No strength, just weight and breath and bruises that told more truth than any words could. The boys didn't move. Not one of them stepped forward. She looked up, dazed. Her lips cracked. One eye was already swollen shut. She blinked hard like she wasn't sure what was real. "Micah," she whispered. He didn't answer. She looked past the outlaw, into the cabin. "I had to," she said. "He knows. He knows they're here." Micah stepped forward now, slow, stiff. "Mama." She nodded. I started crying, but it didn't sound right. It came out dry, no sobs, just breath broken apart. The outlaw pulled her inside, shut the door, locked it. The boys gathered near the hearth, silent, watching her like she might disappear if they blinked. She leaned against the wall, slid to the floor. "He knows," she said again. "He said he'd burn this place, said he'd kill him slow." Micah knelt beside her. "How?" "I heard him, on the phone. Said the name. Said the outlaw was sheltering runaways. Said they were all his." "Tonight?" the outlaw asked. She nodded. "He's got the horses, got the men. Said the badge would shine for the last time." The youngest boy whispered, "He found us." "He always finds us," another said. The outlaw crouched in front of her. "Why now?" She looked at him, long, eyes wet, voice low. "Because I'd rather die with him than live quietly one more day." The cabin held still. Micah touched her shoulder, but she flinched. "You shouldn't have come," he said. "I know. He'll kill you too." "I know that too." The outlaw stood, moved to the window, looked out. Still nothing but dark. "You run?" he asked her. "Number I walked all the way from town." "I had to." "How long have you been watching him hurt them?" "Too long." "Why'd you let it go on?" "I thought I could protect them. If I just stayed quiet. If I just played the part." "And did you?" Her voice cracked. "No." Micah's hands balled into fists. "You didn't even try." "I tried," she whispered. "You don't know how much I tried." The outlaw turned. "What's he bringing?" 3 men, guns, maybe fire. The pacing boy started again. "Circles, fast. We gotta run." "No," the outlaw said. "We'll die here." "No, we won't." Micah stood. I looked at the outlaw. "What do we do?" "We hold." The youngest shook his head. "We ain't soldiers." "No." The outlaw said, "You're sons, and sons got more to fight for than soldiers ever do." Their mother sobbed once, covered her mouth. "He made me believe it was better to be silent," she said. "That I was doing right by letting them suffer. That love meant keeping the peace." "It doesn't," Micah said. "I know." The outlaw moved to the fireplace, pulled the rifle down from the mantel, checked the chamber. 6 rounds. He set it on the table, then picked up the second. "Board the windows," he said. Micah nodded. The boys scrambled, pulling furniture, hammering planks with whatever nails they could find. The youngest moved fast, despite the tears running down his face. The outlaw locked the door. He turned to the woman. "Have you ever shot?" She shook her head. "You want to learn?" She looked at her sons. Her hands tightened into fists. "Yes." He gave her the pistol. "Stay low. Don't fire unless you see his eyes." She nodded. The wind picked up outside. The trees groaned. "You think we'll make it?" the pacing boy asked. The outlaw stared at the window. "I think we'll hurt him worse than he ever thought possible." He moved to the last window, drove the final board in. Then silence. The cabin darkened, firelight the only glow. The outlaw looked around. At the boys. At their mother's house. At the weight in their faces. "This time," he said, "he doesn't get to be the one knocking." Then he barred the window shut. The trees lit up first, a crooked line of fire tracing the edge of the fence line like someone had drawn it with a burning knife. It moved fast, low, deliberate, not windblown, lit by hand. The boys saw it at the same time. They didn't scream. They didn't run. They just stared. Micah pulled the youngest close. The little one didn't cry, just curled tighter into his coat. The pacing boy had stopped pacing. Now he sat with his back against the cold stone of the hearth, eyes blank. Their mother stood in the kitchen, both hands gripping a cast-iron pan like it was the only weight she could trust. Her knuckles were white, her feet bare. The outlaw stood at the window, peering through a slit between the boards, his jaw set. His breath didn't change, but his hand never left the rifle stock. "They're here," he said. "How many?" Micah asked. 3, maybe 4th. 1 on a horse. That'll be him." The wind shifted, blowing smoke toward the cabin. Sparks danced past the glass. A voice rang out, loud, low, too steady to be afraid. "Bring him out." The outlaw didn't move. I said, "Bring him out now." Micah looked at the door. "It's him." The outlaw nodded. "I know." Another voice, thinner. "Burn the place if he doesn't open up." The outlaw stepped toward the door. The boys were tense. Their mother whispered, "Don't." He opened the top half of the door, just enough to show his face. The sheriff sat tall on a pale horse, torch in one hand, shotgun slung across his back. Two men stood behind him, both armed. One held a jug, the other held matches. "They're mine," the sheriff called out. "They're not property," the outlaw said. "They're blood. That's the same thing." "Not anymore." "You think you're doing right, holding 'em here?" "I think I'm undoing what you broke. They ain't yours to raise. They were never yours to ruin." The sheriff laughed. "You don't know what they are. I know what you are. You gonna open the door? No? Then I'll burn you out." The outlaw didn't blink. "Go ahead." The sheriff smiled like a man who'd been waiting for permission. He nodded to one of his men. The torch flew first, hit the far corner of the barn. Dry hay caught instantly. The flames bloomed high, bright orange against the night. The second torch hit the roof. The wood cracked. The boys jumped. Smoke slid under the door. The outlaw shut it fast. "Back," he said. "All of you." They moved without speaking. He grabbed the oil lamp from the table, ripped the curtain from the window, and soaked it. Struck a match. "Hold it." "What are you doing?" Micah asked. "Giving them what they want." He opened the back door, walked toward the barn. Fire flared beside him. He didn't flinch. He moved to the edge, tossed the burning cloth into the hay pile near the feed. Flames roared higher. The men on the edge of the woods turned. He watched their silhouettes shift, moving toward the barn, shouting orders, panicked. He ran back toward the cabin. Inside, the air was thick. The boys were coughing. The woman had tears running down her cheeks, but held her ground. "Now," the outlaw said, "go." "Where?" Micah asked. He moved to the corner of the floor, kicked aside the rug, yanked open the cellar hatch. "Down. Quiet." The boys rushed. The mother followed last. She hesitated at the top of the steps, looking at the smoke curling down from the rafters. "I won't let them take you," the outlaw said. She nodded once, disappeared below. He shut the hatch, pulled the rug back over, covered the edges with the table leg. Then he stood in the middle of the room, rifle ready. Outside, the men shouted. The fire screamed louder. Wood popped. The cabin filled with heat. The outlaw stared at the door. He didn't move. Morning broke slow and gray, crawling across the valley like it didn't want to see what was left. Smoke curled up in thin ribbons from the ruins where the cabin had stood. Just blackened boards, smoldering ash, the faint hiss of wet coals fighting with dew. The barn was gone. The trees nearby scorched black. Silence sat heavy in the air, broken only by the creak of the front porch, now half collapsed. The outlaw lay there, slumped against the last standing post, his shirt soaked red on one side. Blood seeped down his ribs, pooling beneath him. One hand clutched his side. The other rested on the rifle still warm from the last shot fired. His eyes fluttered, opened halfway, closed again. Across the yard, the sheriff's body lay draped over the fence, legs tangled, arms out wide like he'd tried to fly and failed. The badge on his chest caught the light, dull and cracked. His hat was gone. His face was bloodied. The wound in his throat was dark and deep. The boys stood near the well, back straight. Soot marked their cheeks. Their clothes hung loose, half burnt at the sleeves. None of them spoke. Not yet. Micah stepped forward. Slow. Sure. He crossed the yard barefoot, boots burned up in the fire. Each step left prints in the ash. He reached the fence, looked down at the sheriff. He didn't speak. He just unpinned the badge, held it in his palm, then turned. The others watched him as he walked to the well behind the barn's remains. The wind picked up slightly. The smoke moved with it. Micah stood over the well. He opened his fingers. The badge fell, clinked once, then silence. He didn't look down. "We ain't his," he said. "Not anymore." The boys didn't answer. They didn't have to. Behind them, the cellar door creaked open. Their mother climbed out, arms shaking, hair tangled, face streaked with soot. She coughed once, then twice. She looked around, at what remained, at what didn't, at her boys. Then she saw him, the outlaw. She crossed the blackened ground, past the shattered window frame, over what used to be the steps. She dropped to her knees beside him. His breathing was shallow, like wind through leaves. "Hey," she whispered. His eyes opened. "Still here," he muttered. She smiled, but her eyes were full of panic. "We need help. We need to stop the bleeding." "No time. You saved them." "They saved themselves." She pressed her hand against the wound. He flinched, but didn't pull away. "Why'd you help?" she asked. His gaze drifted past her, to the field, to the fence, to the sky just starting to brighten. "Because someone should have helped my brother." She bowed her head. "I was too scared back then," she said. "Everyone was." "You weren't." "I was. Just not scared of him." Her hand trembled over his chest. "I should have left. Sooner." "You left when it mattered." "I thought I'd lose them." "You'd already lost them, but now they're back." She nodded slowly. The boys had gathered behind her, watching, waiting, not crying. Not yet. The outlaw looked at them one last time. "You keep 'em safe," he said. "I will. And don't lie to 'em." "I won't. They know what pain is. Now teach 'em what peace feels like." She pressed her hand tighter. He exhaled once, sharp, then soft. The wind blew stronger now, enough to lift the ashes into small whirls. She watched his chest, still. She reached forward gently and closed his eyes with her fingers. The wind carried the smoke higher, across the fence, into the trees, toward the sky that looked just a little less gray now. The cabin was gone, but something new had survived. The fire had died to embers. What used to be the cabin now sat as a pile of charred wood, half-burnt belongings, and the wreckage of what was. The sun was low, and the air was thick with smoke. The wind swept through the ruins, carrying the smell of ash and the weight of what had been lost. The boys and their mother stood a few steps away, watching the place burn down to nothing. No one spoke. No one moved. Micah stood in front, shoulders tense, hands gripping his sides like he could hold the whole world in place if he just tried hard enough. The youngest boy clung to his coat, not crying, but not letting go. The mother wiped her eyes with the sleeve of her dress, a tired look on her face. The older boy was by the fire pit, throwing a broken chair leg into the flames. The crackle of burning wood was the only sound. "We should have left," Micah said, his voice low but firm. He looked at his brothers. They didn't answer, just stared at the ground. He tried again. "We should have gone sooner." "You're the one who kept us here," the second youngest said. His voice wasn't harsh, but the words cut just the same. "You're the one who said we needed to stay." "I didn't know it was going to be like this," Micah muttered, half to himself. "I didn't know." He stopped. The silence that followed hung heavy, broken only by the sound of their breath. The mother stepped forward, her hand resting on Micah's shoulder. Her fingers trembled. "You did the best you could." Micah didn't respond. He wasn't sure what he was supposed to say. The weight of the outlaw's death pressed down on him, heavier than anything he'd ever carried before. The man who had saved them, the man who had fought for them, now gone. Micah moved toward the remains of the cabin, the dirt under his boots crunching as he stepped through what was left. He knelt down by the ashes, picking through what was still there. His fingers brushed over the remnants of the outlaw's tools, rusted knives, broken pieces of rope, a matchbook, half burnt. He picked it up and ran his fingers over the edge of the matchsticks. "I never wanted this," Micah said, more to the wind than anyone else. "He knew what he was doing," the mother said quietly behind him. Micah turned to face her. She was standing at the edge of the wreckage, looking at the house, her eyes distant. "We don't have anything left," Micah said, voice strained. "We don't have anywhere to go." "You have each other," she replied, her voice breaking on the last word. Micah didn't answer. He couldn't. What did that mean when they had nothing else? What did that mean when everything had burned down? The youngest boy stepped forward, his eyes wide and scared. "Are we going to stay here?" Micah looked at him, his throat tight. He didn't know. He didn't know what the right thing was anymore. "We can't stay here," he finally said. "We'll leave. Find somewhere else." The second youngest looked toward the horizon, his face pale. "Where?" Micah looked back at the ruins, the place they had once called home. What had been a refuge was now just ash and smoke. He couldn't stay. He couldn't lead them into that emptiness. They needed more than this, more than memories and burnt timber. He could see it now, the way the boys were looking at him, waiting for something he didn't know how to give. "I'll lead you," he said quietly, though the words felt strange on his tongue. "We'll leave this place. Find something else. Something better." The youngest boy hesitated, his hand still gripping Micah's coat. "Are you sure?" Micah didn't know, but he nodded. "I'm sure." His mother walked over, her hand shaking as she took a piece of fabric from the wreckage. A scrap of cloth, burnt at the edges, but unmistakably the outlaw's coat. She held it in her hand, staring down at it. She pressed it to her chest and closed her eyes. Micah stepped forward and placed a hand on her shoulder. He could feel the tremor in her bones, the weight of the past few days catching up to her. "We'll be all right," he said, his voice quiet but steady. She didn't say anything. She just stood there, holding the piece of cloth like it was all she had left. The wind picked up, scattering ash and dust. Micah looked at his brothers. They were standing close now, each of them silent, watching him. The weight of their eyes was too much, but it wasn't enough to break him. Not yet. "We leave now," Micah said. The mother nodded slowly, wiping away a tear. She didn't speak. There was no need to. The boys gathered what was left of their belongings. What little there was. A few torn blankets, a handful of coins, whatever could fit in a sack. The mother's eyes lingered on the piece of cloth, but she didn't speak of it again. It was all they had, and that was enough. Micah didn't wait. He turned away from the ashes of their home and started walking. His footsteps were heavy, but they were his. And that was the only thing that mattered. They left the wreckage behind. The sky was empty above them, the air still thick with the smell of smoke. But they kept walking, toward something uncertain, toward something that would never be the same. Micah didn't know where they were going, but at least they were going. And that was enough for now. The road was long and unfamiliar. It stretched ahead, dirt and stones crunched under their boots, the horizon blurred by the heat of midday. The family walked in silence, the weight of their steps heavier than the packs on their backs. Micah led the way, eyes narrowed, shoulders set. His mind was in every direction, every sound, every rustle in the underbrush. The sheriff's men could be anywhere. The youngest boy trailed behind, kicking at the dirt, glancing nervously at the road ahead. The other two boys moved in line, but none of them spoke much. The air between them was thick with something unspoken. Micah's mind churned. He could feel the tension growing between them, rising like the dust beneath their feet. The boys weren't just tired, they were scared, and it was showing. Scared of being found, scared of the future, scared of what had happened and what was still coming. He turned around briefly, catching the eyes of the second youngest boy, the one who always had a question, always had something to say. "Don't fall behind," Micah said, trying to keep his voice steady. But there was something else in it too, something like worry. "I'm not," the boy muttered, rubbing his eyes. "Just tired." "I know," Micah said. "I know." The mother walked a few paces behind the boys, her hands wringing together in her shawl, eyes on the road ahead, but distant. Her thoughts were far off too. Her past, her choices, the life she had tried so hard to protect, was unraveling piece by piece as they walked further from what was left behind. She sighed. Quietly, almost to herself, she began to speak. "You know, before your father, everything was different," she said, as much to the road as to them. "We lived in a small town near the river. The air was always wet with rain. There were green fields and flowers everywhere, even in the winter." Micah didn't turn around, but the others slowed slightly, catching her words. "We had a house that wasn't falling apart. It wasn't perfect, but we didn't care. Your father was different back then. He didn't have that fire in his eyes. He worked with his hands, with the land. There were people who smiled when they saw him, not just the ones who feared him." The youngest boy stopped for a moment, catching her words. "What happened to him?" She didn't answer right away. Her feet shuffled a bit faster as the past caught up to her. "He changed," she said, her voice tight. "The land didn't give us what we needed, and the people didn't stay. And then, one day, he decided it wasn't about work anymore. It was about power." She stopped walking for a moment, her hand brushing the fabric of her dress, like it was trying to remember. The boys walked past her, but the silence stretched long. Too long. It seemed like she was trying to pull the memory back, trying to understand it herself. "When did it change?" Micah asked, his voice not as sharp as it had been before. She let the silence sit for a beat. when we started seeing the blood, when he started seeing it as something more than just a way of life, that's when everything shifted. Micah didn't respond. He could feel it, the weight of her words, the fear that had been building in her. She wasn't just talking about the past anymore. She was talking about how they were now and what had happened to them. "Do you ever think about him?" the second youngest asked quietly. "Every day," she said, but there was no regret in her voice now, just something that felt like acceptance. The youngest boy piped up. "I don't want to be like him." "No," she said. "You won't. None of you will. I won't let you." The road continued. The boys walked ahead, the heat of the day pressing down on their backs, the dust making it hard to breathe. They were halfway to the town, but Micah didn't know what came next. They were still so far from anything resembling safety, but he had to keep going. I had to keep leading them forward. As they approached the edge of the neighboring town, the houses grew sparser. The sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows across the dirt road. The air had a strange stillness to it, like the town was waiting for something, or someone. Then, just at the edge of the town, where the road began to narrow and the trees thickened again, a figure appeared in the distance. Micah stopped, squinting into the light. "Who's that?" the second youngest asked. The figure was still too far away to make out clearly, but they all knew. They'd seen too many faces in their past to not recognize one when it was close. The stranger walked with purpose, each step slow but deliberate, his head lowered as if he knew they were watching. "It's him," Micah said, voice low. The stranger stopped when he saw them, eyes scanning, looking them over. A man they all knew, but not the man they'd expected. "Joe," the second youngest whispered. "What's he doing here?" "Wait," Micah said, gripping the younger boy's arm. He had seen enough of the world to know when someone showed up unexpectedly. It wasn't by accident. Joe walked closer, his face barely visible under the wide brim of his hat. He looked worn, tired. His boots kicked up dust as he approached. When he reached them, he didn't speak right away. "I thought I'd find you," Joe finally said, his voice rough. Micah stepped forward. "You're still alive." "I ain't dead yet," Joe replied, his eyes shifting nervously to the boys and then to the town behind him. "But you're not safe here, not for long." "Why?" Micah asked. Joe looked back at the town. "There's a price on your heads, Micah, and the sheriff's men. They're still out there." The weight of Joe's words hit harder than the road beneath their feet. Micah didn't know what to think, but the truth was clear. They couldn't stay here. Not now. "Where can we go?" the mother asked. Joe hesitated. "I know a place. It's not much, but it's out of the sheriff's reach. If you're coming, we need to leave now." Micah didn't look back at the others. He didn't have to. They all knew. He nodded. "Let's go." And as they walked into the unknown, they felt the shift. For the first time in years, they weren't running from something. They were walking toward it. The town looked peaceful enough. The sun hung low over crooked rooftops, casting long shadows down the dirt road. The air was thick with the smell of earth, and something faintly sweet, like dried flowers. The houses were small but sturdy, tucked together in neat rows. The kind of place that felt forgotten by time, the kind that let you think you could settle. But Micah knew better than to think peace meant safety. They'd been running for too long to believe in easy smiles and friendly waves. As they walked into town, the air felt thick with something unspoken. Every door that opened or closed, every step they took, felt watched. They reached the edge of the main street where the old general store stood with peeling paint and a wooden sign that hung at an odd angle. Micah paused, his eyes scanning the faces that passed by. Some looked away quickly, while others stared too long. A few greeted them with hesitant nods, but none of it felt right. They had no choice but to keep moving. Micah spoke first. "I'll find work," he said. His voice sounded like it had been stripped of some old weight, but he was still the same boy, still a brother, still their leader, even though the weight was heavier now. The mother nodded. "We'll find a place." They had to. The house they were given wasn't much. The roof sagged in places, and the walls were thin, cracked in some spots. But it was a roof. It was something that felt almost like home. Almost. As Micah went into town to see what work he could find, the mother stayed behind, trying to clean and organize the small space, turning the cluttered house into something that could be called a home. She scrubbed floors, patched up broken windows, and hung up what little they had left, torn curtains and a few old blankets. But every time she stopped, the weight of everything that had happened pressed down on her. The memories of the sheriff, of their old life, wouldn't leave her alone. She thought about her decisions, about how she had stayed too long, kept quiet too long. She had let everything slip away, and now she couldn't undo what was done. She couldn't save them from that. The boys helped in their own way. The youngest worked on the garden, even though it was just a patch of dirt in the back. The second youngest swept the porch, though it seemed like he was just moving dust from one side to the other. And Micah, when he returned, had news. "I've got a job at the mill," he said, his face tired but steady. "It's not much, but it'll pay for food." The mother didn't say anything at first. She just looked at him. The weight of what they'd been through, what they were still going through, sat heavy between them. "It's good, Micah," she said finally, her voice hoarse. "We need it." They worked for the next few days, settling in as best they could. Micah spent long hours at the mill, lifting and carrying, working the machines until his hands bled. The boys helped when they could, but there wasn't much for them to do. They were still young, still too small to make a difference in a town full of people who had already made up their minds about them. As the days passed, the mother found herself trying to hold the family together, but the cracks in their past kept showing. When she went to the market one morning, she saw a familiar face in the crowd, a face from their old life. It was Joe, one of the men who had worked with the sheriff. He had been part of that group, the one who knew too much, the one who had seen too much. Her breath caught in her chest. She tried to move past him, but he saw her. His eyes flicked over to her, then down to the ground, and he started toward her. "Ma'am," he said. His voice was rough. He didn't smile. He didn't look friendly. The mother froze. "Joe," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. He nodded. "I didn't expect to see you here." "Nor I you." "You're out of place, ma'am," he said, glancing toward the rest of the market. "You and your boys." "I'm just trying to make a life," she said, but her voice was thin. The lie is too heavy to carry. He stepped closer. "You think they'll let you?" "I don't need their permission," she replied, but her hands were shaking. "I'm just trying to feed them." Joe didn't respond at first. His eyes darted over her shoulder to the boys in the distance. They were watching, unsure. The weight of their past follows them like a shadow. "Listen," Joe said. "I didn't come here to make trouble, but you don't know this town. You don't know who's watching." He looked over his shoulder, his eyes shifting nervously. "You don't know who's still got ties to your husband." The mother's face went pale. "What do you mean?" Joe hesitated, his voice lowering. "The sheriff's still looking, and his reach is longer than you think." She swallowed. Her chest tightened. The boys were just coming up to the market when Joe took a step back. "I'd be careful if I were you. This place, it's not like it seems." Without another word, Joe turned and walked away, disappearing into the crowd. The mother stood there, frozen. The market had grown still. The boys looked at her, their faces filled with questions they didn't know how to ask. Micah walked toward her, his face hardening when he saw her expression. "What did he want?" "Nothing good," she said, her voice low, like the weight of the truth had just come crashing down on her. Micah clenched his fists, his jaw tight. "We can't stay here." "We have nowhere else to go," she said. "I thought we could make it work. I thought we could just—" "You can't outrun it," Micah said, cutting her off. "Not for long." "I know," she whispered. She looked at her boys, standing close together now, their eyes wide with fear. "Then we leave again," Micah said, his voice hard but quiet. His words settled over them like a storm. The mother felt a pang in her chest. She had thought they could stay. She had thought this time they would be safe. But she knew now nothing could protect them from what was coming. As the day ended, the family gathered their things in silence. They had no choice but to move again. The sheriff's shadow was never too far behind, but this time the mother wasn't sure where they'd go.